All right, Baruch Hashem, it is Sunday night. Sorry for the late start. It's not so easy to keep this up here, 30 letters in 30 days. Okay, so we'll, first of all, our opening ritual, we'll give a little bit of sedaka in accordance with the rebbes, clarifying his wishes that what is a birthday present? It's Torah study and sedaka together. So the Torah study is studying the 30 letters in 30 days. The tzedakah is the tzedakah. We're going to give a little money. I'm going to use the Koil Chabad Pushka app because it's fun to press this little button and get the noise. Hooray. And yeah, that's my WhatsApp. I'm going to turn that off. Sorry. And we'll give a little shake, shake. Fun, fun, fun. Okay, and awesome. Okay, this is day 14. Today was Chav Gimel Adar. Tonight is Oyer L'Chav Daled. Day 14. Okay, so that means we're completing our second week. And this letter is from Igris Chelik Chaf Aleph, volume 21. It's letter 8030. It doesn't have a date. It just says Tafshin Yud Daled. I guess for whatever reason there was no date. Although from the context of the letter at the very end, the Rebbe gives a bracha for Kabbalah Satera B'Simcha B'Pnimios, which means that it was sometime before Shavuos, because that's what we customarily say before Shavuos. So that's what I can tell you about that. All right, fascinating letter, really, really fascinating. For a lot of reasons, but particularly, I'll just give you a heads up. To me, this letter really showcases the Rebbe's approach to personal guidance. That when you speak about human issues, about personalities and people, you have to take such a tailor-made approach. It's not one size fits all. And I've seen that many, many times in Igros. But the way that Rebbe brings it out in this particular letter is very rich. So let's, with no further ado, B'hanageya l'hashayla im afsher lies Yehudi dasi bleizaken. Regarding the question, and it starts with ... because something was redacted. So not only the date is missing, but at least the first line or maybe the first paragraph, or who knows how much of the letter is missing because it was personal. But we're starting in the middle of the letter. In regards to your question whether or not it's possible to be a religious Jew without a beard. Now, why does somebody ask that question? Why would they even ask that question? Is it possible to be a religious Jew without a beard? So the Rebbe, I just love this. Hine, nusach hashayla. Nusach hashayla. In English, I would say, the way you are formulating that question, hine masim lematzav b'nom shiachya, it kind of fits your son's situation. So it seems to me, shekvar ramasti al zeh I already alluded to this in my previous letter to you. In other words, it sounds like to me they just tried to say in an innocent way, like, and we were just wondering, does the Rebbe agree that a Jew could be a religious Jew without a beard? And then they wanted to get the Rebbe to say, well, of course, because the simple answer is, well, of course you can. And then they were going to, it seems, I'm reading a lot into it, but it seems like they were going to then grab that line from the Rebbe and go to their son and say, aha, the Rebbe said you can be a fruma yid without a beard. Okay. So the Rebbe's like, I know where you're going with this. I know how you want to use this. You're talking about your son. So basically, what is this? Remember, we said this was Tafshin Yud Daled. This is 1954. Please remember, in 1954, how many good, God-fearing, religious, committed Jews, Orthodox Jews there were, who were terrified that their sons would have beards. Yeah. Yes. This is not the only letter, by the way, to parents who want their kid to be frum. They want their kid to be frum, but they don't want him to have a beard because it's just too crazy, too wild, right? All right. By the way, and it wasn't just in America. I don't know where these people live. Could be they lived in Eretz Yisrael. But I'll tell you something I heard once at a Farbrengen. Schallenberg Gordon said that that in Vilna, he didn't live in Vilna, he lived in Dokshitz, but I just remember this line, that Beryl Grossbaum was the only bacher with a beard in the whole Vilna before the war. Meaning there were old men with beards, but like a bacher, a young guy with a beard, he was the only one, Beryl Grossbaum, Lubavitcher. I just remember that line. Okay, at any rate, so these parents are freaked out. What's their kid doing with a beard? So the Rebbe is like, yeah, I kind of like dealt with this already in my previous letter to you. But nevertheless, I'll do it again. All right, you want to have this conversation again? Okay, fine. Let's do it again. Woohoo! And here it is. And I love this answer because I'm going to tell you right now what the Rebbe does not do, and what the Rebbe, and I want to be very careful how I say this. Everybody knows the Lubavitcher Rebbe was a Talmid Chacham, a Baki b'chol haTorah kula. If the Lubavitcher Rebbe wanted to write a well-resourced answer with Maramekaimis, that means with scholarly citations, with sources, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was fully equipped to do so. And he does not do that. The Rebbe does not answer and get pulled into the polemic, into the argument about sourcing whether or not a beard is required, not required, how required. Look at the beauty of this answer. Okay. And it's what I was saying before about it's so personal. Kol Adam hu kema shlema chai. That's poetry. Every person is a koima shlema chai, a complete living structure. That's the best I can translate it. Or I could translate it into Yiddish because I've seen koima translated in Likutei Sichos as gestalt. So I could translate it as gestalt. I only remember the word gestalt because of gestalt therapy, because I remember hearing about that in the 70s when I was a little kid. All right. Every person is I'll call it a single living organism, okay? Meaning to say, a person is a living being. Yeah, obviously, no kidding. No, but listen. Every person is a complete, whole, living individual. So when you're trying to answer any question, you have to think, you're dealing with a living person who's not an automati, not an automaton, not a robot. A general answer is not always appropriate. In other words, there could be an answer that on paper is the official answer for the general public, and yet for this guy, it is totally not the answer. Because you have to look at this person. Or, as I've said many times when people have asked me about my Ami column, which was just a poor imitation of the Igros Kodesh, and I've spoken about this many times, that when Rabbi Yitzchak Frankfurter asked me, 10, 11 years ago, whatever it was, to start writing the advice column in the Ami, and I said, I don't even know how to write an advice column. He said, just do it. And so I just started imitating Igros. So one of the things I've said many times publicly is that one of the main lessons I learned from the Igros about how to answer a letter is don't answer the question, answer the questioner. Okay? So that's what the Rebbe is saying here, is that you can't just give the pisrein klali, the general one-size-fits-all answer, even though that answer is correct, even though that answer is based in fact, but it's not necessarily the answer for this guy. Ulavar dvara yeser, and to explain my words more, gewaltige mashal here. Listen to this analogy. Bias bal koima achas oishtei koimes, gam hu bias. A one-story or two-story house is also a house, right? It doesn't have to be 3, 4, 5 stories to be called a house. One story is a house. Okay, so imagine you have a house that's 1 story, it's 2 stories. It's a beautiful house. It's a house. It's a good house. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. But let's say now you build on this 1-story house, you put on a 2nd story. Or it was already 2 stories, so you put on a 3rd story. You put on another floor. That is a hisafa. That's an addition, like literally they'll call it. The contractor will call it building an addition to your original house. Now, meaning to say, seemingly it's superfluous because when it was 1 story, it was a house. Now you made it 2 stories. Okay, that 2nd story is totally superfluous. You could take away that 2nd story, and you'll be back to a 1-story house. And it's a house. It's a fine house the way it was. No, not so fast. Not so fast. Listen to this. It's incredible. But after you put in the building, after you put in the 2nd story, the addition, and now you want to take it out, and you want to go back to a 1-story house, even though it was fine before when it was a 1-story house, but you made it from a 1-story house to a 2-story house. Now you want to take away the 2nd story. Or it was a 2-story house originally, and you made it from a 2-story house to a 3-story house, and now you want to take away the 3rd story and put it back to the way that it was as a 2-story house. No. Moving it is understood. Sharisa you're going to damage all of the floors of the house, even down to the foundation. Because everything has now been connected with mortar and the like. So much more so, if you want to remove a lower floor, that's going to destroy any floors that are built on top of it. Okay. Beautiful mashal. You follow what the Rebbe is saying? It's saying like this. I'm going to spell out the nimshal. You have a 1-story house. It's a house. It's not a house, it's a house. So you have a Jew who's keeping Shulchan Aruch. He's a Fruma Yid by all definitions of halacha. Beautiful, great. Now he added something. He added a hidur, a chumrah, something extra. Lifnim Meshuras Hadin. He didn't have to add it, but he did add it. Okay, now you want to take it away and go back to how it was when he was perfectly fine, just being a regular Fruma Yid. Yeah, in theory, but not in practice. Because when you're going to start taking away, you don't know the effect. It's going to weaken the structure. So the Rebbe doesn't exactly say this, but I might even add, you didn't have to add it, but once you add it, it's very dangerous to take away. And by taking away, you will compromise the structure of the entire building, even the parts that you wanted to leave behind. So these parents are like, let the kid take off the beard, but he'll still be Shomer Shabbos. And the Rebbe is basically saying, it doesn't work like that. You'll take off the beard, and God forbid, you'll also lose Shabbos, which you're trying to keep. Okay, let's continue here. Oh, I love this. I'm very charged from this. Okay. Mibli lekonis bepisrin ashayla eza mokim teifis nisias zokin betaryag mitzvahs haTorah kedesha. Without getting into the whole conversation about what level of importance a beard has among the 613 commandments in our holy Torah. I love it that Rebbe is saying, we're not going to even get into that discussion. And in parentheses, the Rebbe even grants the point. The Rebbe concedes the point. V'yadua, it's known, l'kol, to everyone. Asher kama charedim, many God-fearing Jews, ma'anshi Ashkenaz, specifically from Anshi Ashkenaz, Void, but others as well, heim blich simazokin, don't have a full beard. Okay, so you're going to tell me, but I know from a Yidden who don't have a beard. The Rebbe is saying, yeah, I know that too. I'm not arguing that. Totally true. It's totally true. And on paper, in theory, if we're talking academically, you're right. But we're not talking academically. We're talking about a real living human being. We're talking about your son. Follow. Hine When we approach it, dealing with the real individual human being, we have to think about his situation. It's not any more theoretical. You're not talking about a beard. You're talking about your son's beard and what it has come to mean to him and how it is now inextricably interconnected with his entire Yiddishkeit. You hear me? Okay. Ha'achlota d'Nasiya Zokin. Your son took upon himself the beard with a hisaydus penimus. That means an inner arousal, meaning he this wasn't perfunctory for him. He really felt something deeply about it. Okay? It means something to him. It is not so simple to determine whether for him, and again, for him, it doesn't matter objectively how you want to rank beard, no beard. That doesn't matter right now because we're talking about him. Subjectively, it's very difficult to determine whether or not for him that is a kaimer shayna, sheba mashal hanal in the old in the parable that we just used, or if that's an additional floor. In other words, you want to pull out the beard. I don't know if that's floor 2 or 3 for him, or if that's even become floor 1. Al enyonim shekadmula, meaning that maybe that is an additional thing over the things that came before it, or maybe that's even become now the foundation of his whole identity as a frum yid. V'safik be'enai im gam tzorich lachter b'nishmasei kedei levar adavar. And it is doubtful in my eyes, the Rebbe says, whether it's a worthwhile thing to try to probe and figure it out. Meaning to say, it's not a productive thing to go and start investigating and asking someone, so how important is the beard to you? How attached are you to it? That I was saying, don't go there. Don't go there. Ki hare kol chotut benefesh ha'adam pnima enemevi bracha v'chulut. Strong language. When you start probing a person's soul, it does not bring blessing. Like, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Stop trying to evaluate how important something is or not to someone. They're doing it. Leave it alone. At any rate, it's pretty clear from the facts on the ground. That's how I'll translate it. The matzave hoakshavi, the facts on the ground. Naisuetz like kol ha'inyanim siba achas she'alsalei b'milchama nafshis penimis b'zazum v'chulu. It's all become one thing for him, which he's fighting a war. And waging an internal struggle, meaning to say he's an intense boy, and he's struggling, and he's fighting for his Yiddishkeit. And remember, we're talking about the 50s. The assimilation was so rampant. He was really fighting for his Yiddish identity. And it's like, parents, don't play around with this. You're gonna try to do a surgery to remove the thing that's bothering you, because for whatever reason the beard is triggering you, and God forbid, I don't even want to finish the sentence. Okay. And as I wrote already, the Rebbe says, it is the responsibility of his relatives and of his friends, and especially his parents, that they should encourage him as much as possible. And I'm hoping that they're going to do that. They're going to encourage, meaning only be positive, only encourage, because that's in the best interest of their son, and by extension, in their best interest. So that I was saying, please, guys, do yourself a favor. I know the beard bothers you, but do yourself a favor. You're going to have nachas from this kid. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Okay. V'tevis b'nom hi. And now the Rebbe spells it out, and I love this. What is Toivus Benam? What is the good? What does it mean for the good of your son? I could cry reading this sentence here. What does it mean for the good of your son? What do I mean for the benefit of your son, for the good of your son? Not just in the spiritual sense, I'm adding the word spiritual sense, that he's doing a hider mitzvah, he's doing a mitzvah in a more beautiful way, in the way that chassidim do mitzvahs. Ella, but rather, this is actually giving him peace of mind. And it's giving him strength to continue in the way in which he's going. And this is because it's so difficult. There are so many obstacles, there's so many setbacks around him. It really requires a lot of encouragement from anyone who he cares about. So the Rebbe says, what does it mean, Toivus Benam, the good of their son? The Rebbe is making it very clear. I'm not just here as the rabbi pushing Yiddishkeit. Oh, I want him to be more frum. No, that too. But do you understand that we're talking about his emotional health? That the beard and everything that it symbolizes and the Hiseidus Penimis, at all tied to his emotional health. So don't mess with your son's spiritual well-being and his emotional health. It's incredible. Okay, I said I could cry, I did cry. All right. I will conclude with a blessing in the words of my father-in-law, the Rebbe. May you receive the Torah with joy and inner devotion, and that is, as I mentioned, the customary bracha before Shavuos. Okay, now I have a treat for you. I was at a Hanachas Tefillin this morning for the son of a very dear friend of mine, Mendy Hertz, here in Five Towns, our chazan, and my good friend. So I have a little treat because he shared with me under the table an unpublished letter, an English letter that his great-grandfather got from the Rebbe, and it has a lot of similarities to this letter, this Hebrew letter that we just learned. And what's crazy, hashgacha pratis, is that not only was today his son's Hanachas Tefillin, his son Yitzchak, Mazel Tov, but Shabbos, Chaf Beis Adar, was Mendy's grandfather's 25th yortzeit. And of course, who am I speaking of? I'm speaking about the illustrious Chassid Reb Kohos Weiss, Olav Shalom. Okay. Now, in case you don't know who Kohos Weiss was, anyone who is a Lubavitcher owes him a debt of gratitude, because basically the Rebbe's camp, the whole system, Camp Gan Yisrael, exists because of him. You ever seen the pictures of the Rebbe visiting Gan Yisrael, and he's walking next to a guy who's like super tall? That's Reb Kohos. He was very, very tall. Anyways, when the Bacham wanted to create the camp, so the Rebbe said, you have to have a responsible guy. I'll only let it if there's someone responsible. So they brought in Reb Kohos. Oh, okay, now we could have a camp. We have a responsible guy. Now, who was Reb Kohos? He was, I'm going to say, a regular American boy from Pittsburgh, who his father, Reb Kohos' father, to whom the letter I'm about to read to you was written, was a Fruma Yid, and wanted his son to be a Fruma Yid. He just had certain, like a level of comfortability, what that meant to be a Fruma Yid. And what happened is he sent his son to Lubavitch, and he got really into it, and he ended up with the beard and all the, the whole package. He bought the full package, sort of the Lubavitch starter kit, and became the full package. So this is a letter that Kohath Weiss's father wrote to the Rebbe, basically saying, very similar to the letter we just read from the Igros, like, could you tell my son, like, he doesn't necessarily have to do the beard thing? Like, it's very nice, like, he's learning in yeshiva, and, the beard is a little much, right? Just so you should understand, I mentioned Gan Yisrael. The Rebbe made Reb Kohath's shidduch with his Kala, his wife, Tzalanga Yoren, Miriam Dubinsky, and the Rebbe was Masader Kiddushin. So I just want you to understand, you're talking about a kid who grew up in Pittsburgh, very, American, not from Geshe Chabad, and the Rebbe really personally was makad of him, handpicked him, brought him close, set him up in life, sent him back on shlichus, by the way, to Pittsburgh, where he continued to serve in his post until he passed away in, 25 years ago. It was Toshin Samach, it was 2000. And he's an icon and a hero that you don't hear enough about. You don't hear, in my humble opinion, you don't hear enough about him. But he was a real, I think, a role model, especially for the Tzuga Kumaner. Okay, talking about a guy with no Lubavitch yichus, but you know what his yichus is? That the Rebbe was makad of him and built him and made him into a real emblem of, I think, of Dair Shvi. What is a chassid of Dair Shvi? Reb Kohath Weiss, all of a shalom. So, anyways, it was his 25th yahrzeit on Chaf Beis Adar, and yeah. So I'm going to read to you from the letter. Where is it? Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm going to have to take off my glasses to read this. Dear Mr. Weiss, okay? It's Duquesne, Pennsylvania. You guys got to Google where Duquesne, Pennsylvania is. All right. This is the 17th of Thomas 5713. So we're talking about 1953, which is interesting. The letter we just read was the summer of 1954. So this is actually a year earlier than the letter we just read, except it's in English. I've received your letter. I'm not going to read every line. I've received your letter of June 3rd, and owing to pressure of work, could not reply to it sooner. Your letter concerns your son Kohath, for a number of years, a student of the Lubavitch Yeshiva, who is growing a beard despite your objections. You ask me, therefore, to influence him not to do it. Kohath's father knew that who would his son listen to? He'd listen to the Rebbe. So he wrote to the Rebbe, says, Lubavitch Rebbe, maybe you could tell my son, he doesn't necessarily have to have a beard. Right, okay. I want to precede my reply by an introduction which, though self-evident, must be emphasized nevertheless. Life presents certain difficulties to Jews in general, and Torah true Jews in particular, which non-Jews do not experience. However, through faith and trust in God, Jews have not only overcome such difficulties, but have even derived from them extra powers to live their unique life, first as single and later as family men, a life true to the traditions of our ancestors and true to Torah's Chaim, which God gave us at Sinai. Unfortunately, owing to pressure of circumstances, many people, Jews as well as non-Jews, make compromises with their ideals. A compromise is never a solution, and as a result, it is only in a minority of cases where the compromises do not create a spiritual disturbance or affect the fundamental principles. Similar argument. The Rebbe is not getting into the argument about how important is a beard or not. Irrelevant. What we do know is this Bacher has a beard, and for him to now not have it will be a compromise. And the Rebbe says, I want to warn you about compromises. They don't end where you want them to end. When you start compromising, you know where you began compromising. You don't know where you're going to end compromising. You could compromise stuff that you don't want to lose. Remember, Kosweiss' father wanted him to be a frum yid. He was very happy he was frum. So the Rebbe is saying, please leave this alone. All right. Yeah. So in the majority of cases, compromises undermine the structural foundations of one's being. Similar concepts, structural foundations, like the mashal. The Rebbe doesn't say the mashal of a building over here, but again, it's so interesting how when you think about a person as a full interconnected organism, it's like you start messing with any part and you don't know the ramifications it's going to have on the other parts that was unintended. Okay. Yeah. Now, this is an incredible, I'm going to skip a few lines, but it has also been proven that although the road of compromise is not so dangerous in the latter part of life, when one has already acquired strong anchorage in a mature life, religious, social, family life, etc., compromises may be quite dangerous in earlier years before the person has been able to find his bearings and come to grips with their circumstances of life. It is then very easy to lose one's balance altogether, God forbid, and find life meaningless. Hear what the Rebbe just said? When an older person starts compromising, it's not as dangerous. Although the Rebbe says in general it's dangerous, but not as dangerous. Why? Because he's already set up in life. But when a young person who's still getting established starts compromising, this can undermine everything to the point it's so almost like, I don't want to say terrifying, but it's terrifying, yeah. The Rebbe says a young person who's pushed to make compromises, it can cause them to actually find life meaningless. In other words, like, you have to allow the youth to be zealots, allow them to be radical. The Rebbe was a genius in galvanizing the energy, the chaotic, frenetic energy of youth and just harnessing it, right? Because if you try to make, and this is very much like that time in the 50s, those Eisenhower years, especially the Jewish community just trying to be normal post-Holocaust, and just the survival has to do with just being normal. And the Rebbe's like, the survival is not coming from being normal. Survival is coming from being radical. You see that the Rebbe persisted that this Bacher should keep his beard. And today I was at the Rebbe's oil at the Hanochas Tefillin of this Bacher's great-grandson. So, yeah, the Rebbe knows what he's talking about when he says that something that looks maybe like a side point, but that could be the whole foundation that everything is built on. Yeah, there's more. There's the second page here, but I'll skip to this one part. In view of all the above, and having observed your son, and knowing that his conduct is motivated by a definite system and way of life. So the Rebbe is saying, first of all, I know him. I know this kid, and I see he's not just doing things. Like, he has a shita. He has a way of looking at life. It happens to be, based on Chabad Chassidus, but the point is, there's a coherent worldview. There's a cohesive worldview that motivates his behaviors. You can't just start pulling pieces out. Okay, and that it has strengthened him not only spiritually, but also physically. I don't know what that's referring to. I don't know if he had health issues. I don't know, but that's powerful. That I was saying, I know your son. I'm watching him, and his commitment and his belief in this worldview has strengthened him not only spiritually but physically. And this is also the reason I don't know. I just find it very moving. Like in the previous letter, where the Rebbe is saying, "Tevis benom," the good of your son. The good of your son doesn't just mean his spiritual growth. It means pashut that he should be a healthy person. Okay, so. Now I dropped the phone. Okay, but at any rate, that was the main thing. And then Okay, the letter goes on. It's a beautiful, beautiful letter. Anyways, his neshama should have an aliyah. Like I said, the 25th yortzeit was just yesterday, and Mazel Tov to his great grandson Yitzchak on the Hanachas Tefillin and chazering the first part of the Maimer, and lots of nachas to all of his to Rebbe Koss's Einiklach and Ur Einiklach. And you see here, the Rebbe's approach to the youth. Don't cool them down. Don't rein them in. Encourage them. Positivity. All positive messaging. And if they're a little bit crazy, good. It's good. It's good. Just channel it. It's good. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm sorry again that tonight is a little bit late, and we'll see you again tomorrow night. Amir Tzah Hashem.